Yeah, hello. Welcome to our Unconference. Was that supposed to be applause? Or was that you opening? Okay. But yeah, welcome. We are a group organized by Emily over here, who has volunteered me to do the presentation. Well, I guess I accidentally volunteered myself. But yeah, we're a group that we meet about once a month to talk all things open source mentoring. And we're really excited to have everyone here at our Unconference.
And maybe we can just briefly say our names and organizations real quick too. Is that cool?
Yeah, that's a wonderful idea. Hi, I am Lola Eggerman. I am with Code Day. We run a mentorship program in open source.
My name's Emily Lovell. I'm with UC Santa Cruz with our open source program office, and we also run a couple of mentorship programs.
Hi, I'm Nate W. I am the head of mentoring and documentation with the CNCF, and I help our programs participate in mentorship programs. And I see Stephanie here. Programs like Stephanie's GSOC, right? Absolutely, which we also do. So thanks everyone for coming. I'll pass it back to Lola.
Thank you. So some just ground goals that we've set for this Unconference. We have a very we just want to just sort of talk and make connections and sort of discuss and talk about the problems we face, solutions we've implemented, what we've learned from our different varied mentorship programs, or from whatever perspective you have from open source mentoring. So yeah, some quick goals just to outline as we're trying to make new connections and help you all make new connections. Like I said, share challenges, successes, future collaboration ideas. And a really important thing is we want to make sure to document what we're talking about. We want sort of the discussions that we're having today to be like an everlasting resource for anybody who wants to participate in a mentorship program. We want to be able to have groundwork set for a resource we could pass them. So there will be some more information on what that documentation is going to look like, but we have a couple asks for you on note-taking and submitting your notes to us. So. We have, there's the link there, ossna.flossmentoring.org. That links you to, we have a GitHub repository where we'll put some notes, and we'll talk a little bit more about that soon. So we have a very flexible plan for today. So we're in the intro/kickoff section. For those who may struggle with contextual clues, that's where we're at right now. At 2:25, so in about 10 minutes, we're going to be just talking about what we want to talk about and have a pitch grid system and do some voting and determining what the priority topics are for the different things we want to talk about over the next couple hours. And then we have designated time blocks for what we're going to, for those three main topics we talk about. And we're going to post that in on that whiteboard outside the room so that people can, come and go as they please and discuss sessions they're most interested with. We know there are lots of other very exciting talks happening around this time, so we appreciate you taking your time instead of those talks to come to our Unconference. But by no means are you expected to stay the whole time. You can pop in and pop out as you please and spread the word as you're out there that other people can come in whenever they like. So. Yep, and then at 4:50 p.m. we'll kind of have like wrap up, conclusion stuff, and then be out of here at 5. So that is a promise, yeah. So this is some information about this, about our FLOSS mentoring group. The two main things is we have a Discord server to talk all things FLOSS mentoring, and we have a monthly call, which if you join our mailing list, you will get the invites to that monthly call as well. This overview page is on our GitHub, which I think there's a link to it later on. But ossna.flossmentoring.org, we'll put it up here.
Flossmentoring.org, the URL on the slide will also take you to the main page for this repo.
Right there. Yes.
And we also, Nate submitted a PR earlier today, so you'll find there's even a bit more information. We also we're starting to maintain recordings of people who come to the monthly calls and share like 10 minutes about the work they're doing or a problem or challenge they're facing. And please talk to me if you'd love to, come and talk about. I know some of you in here, I recognize some of you are program administrators, so would love to have you come share on one of our upcoming calls. And you can also find a link to our fully open, working in the open meeting notes through this repository as well.
Yes. Emily, do you want to talk a little bit about what we've worked on together?
Yeah, so far, well, you're at one of the outputs of this group, which is the Unconference. Thank you for choosing to spend some time with us. We're also working on a conference paper for a computing education conference. We just submitted an event funding proposal we're waiting to hear back on to try and get people together for a few days of more in-depth problem solving. And people in this group have also put together a few different conference panels. So we were at Open Source Summit last year, FLOSS last year, and Scale this year. And the group also actually kind of came out of a conference panel even before that at the UC Santa Cruz Open Source Symposium. So yeah, it's really been a long, growing collaborative effort that we would love to have you join us in having these conversations. And we also have a long list of resources we'd like to develop. So if you're interested in contributing your time and your own expertise, we would also love to have you contribute in that way.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that. So we have some more sort of introductions on the different programs that are, active members of this. First off, we have Code Day, which is the organization I'm affiliated with. We've run a totally remote mentorship program helping a lot of college students from lesser well-known non-target schools make their first ever contribution to open source. We partner with all kinds of different open source projects. We partner with tons of different schools, all kinds of different mentors. You can email us if you're interested in participating in this ecosystem in any way, labs@codeday.org, or find me, Lola, or Tyler raising his hand, and Tokir as well. We'll be at the Code Day booth, or you can just find us if you see it as something. So.
At the CNCF. So we participate in several programs, Outreachy, Google Summer of Code, and the Linux Foundation's own LFX program. And a lot of what we do at the CNCF is coaching our projects on how to apply to those programs, how to be a mentor in those programs, and how to work with sort of each other to do best practices and whatnot. We run our LFX program about 3 times a year. So there's a lot of volume that sort of goes through in terms of trying to get more mentors to be a mentor. One thing I keep sort of the thing I'm probably most proud of the work that we're doing is our mentee to contributor to mentor to maintainer flywheel, where we've now, in the last 5 years, since 2020, had 24 mentee alumni eventually go on to become maintainers in CNCF projects. About half of them for the projects that they menteed with. And I'm actually kind of interested that the other half are going on to become maintainers on other CNCF projects, which I think is definitely a win. I don't know if we have any. I like our slide here. This is me riffing on just. I'll hand it back.
Yeah. Well, thank you for. Is there somewhere people can go to find more information?
Mentoring.cncf.io. Brings us to the GitHub repo, and again, a lot of information on mentoring best practices, but also the intake times for all the programs that we are supporting. So we're heading into our term 3 fairly soon, so we'll be asking our projects to open up proposals for that fairly soon.
Awesome. And I can share a little bit about Contributor Catalyst, which is one of our programs at UC Santa Cruz. This is a mentorship program that previously funded by the National Science Foundation until recently we had our funding terminated. We support small cohorts of HBCU students learning about open source software contribution. So it's a really cool program. We did still find bridge funding to run this year. So this is our 3rd year of having small groups of students come and learn, like, start to finish, how to open source, like all the culture, the norms, the tools, and then go and work in external open source projects. And there's just some pictures of last year's cohort. We work together both on Zoom and in person. We also, if you want to learn more about this program specifically, one of my prior mentees who became a peer mentor, and I will be giving a talk tomorrow afternoon at 2:10. And we also, I should have made a slide for this as well, but we also have the open source research experience at UC Santa Cruz, which is we're a participating Google Summer of Code mentor organization. And we also support students from GSOC working on academic open source research projects, which is kind of a unique setup as well. But I want to say, too, that I think one thing I just want to highlight is we are a cross-sector group of people, those of us who've been meeting on these calls over the past year and put this unconference together. And I think that's such a strength that we all bring these different perspectives. And also we have found that we share a lot of the same pain points. So I hope that that will be like one of the interesting things that we can really brainstorm about today is like these common challenges that we face, like how can we sort of work together and share our experiences to work through them.
Yeah, thank you so much. And yeah, so getting right into talking about some potential discussion topics. On our last call, we sort of brainstormed some ideas of what would be good things to talk about at this unconference. And here are, like Emily said, from people from different sectors, different verticals, kind of the common pain points. And so I'll just run through these super quickly, give a little bit more context on them. But we absolutely want to hear from you. What are your pain points? And we're super open to if you have any other important topics you want to discuss. Please don't be shy to just pitch them and say, hey, I want to talk about this. So we have addressing and preparing for incidents of mentor misconduct. Every one of the groups have kind of had issues of mentors maybe not behaving appropriately or doing something that's maybe inappropriate in the mentoring setting, and trying to create a system of best practices and resources on how to handle those, especially for smaller groups that maybe don't handle this kind of situation all that often. We also want to, kind of share about what we've all collectively learned on training mentors, preparing them to be mentors, and recruiting mentors. A really common theme that I've heard from everybody who's running a mentorship program is we can't find enough mentors. And so hearing some more about what you all are trying for recruitment and getting the word out there would, I think, really help everyone as a collective. Next, we have like the kind of classic group work problem of where students are assigned to do something as part of a group project. One student does all the work, everyone else just kind of coasts along. How do we mitigate that? How do we maybe make that a little bit less impactful? And how do we just make sure that everyone is getting as much of an experience as they can out of the mentorship program? The elephant in the room of AI is lots of students are using AI. And while it can be a really beneficial tool, we've seen, I've seen personally through my work and through discussing with my peers and their mentorship programs, is that lots of students are using AI too much, and they're getting too much help from these AI tools, and that's impeding their learning. So kind of talking about ways that we can help educate students on effective and ethical ways to use AI as a, kind of guide and not so much as a, boss. We also want to talk about helping first-time contributors, kind of build up trust and communication and be, more friendly with, maintainers. Lots of students feel like they're very scary when every maintainer I've ever met has always been really friendly. And especially in, the wake of, things like the XZ scandal, if anyone remembers that from last year, people are a lot more hesitant to accept first-time contributions because they feel like it might be a security risk. So discussing what we can do for mentorship programs focused on, first-time contributors, how we can help mitigate some of those challenges for our students, as well as making sure that our programs are inclusive across all languages and time zones, and everything that we can do to make sure that this is accessible to everyone with our programs. So next question, what do you want to talk about, everyone?
Cool. So we're thinking how we'd like to proceed is you saw some of those topics to maybe just get you thinking. What we'd like to do next is Nate, I think, is going to run around with a mic and kind of just get your quick takes on what you want to talk about. It could be something on that list. It could be something totally different than what's on that list. So we're going to ask you to do just like a quick 15-second pitch for what is important to you. I'm going to write those ideas down. Oh, I was going to do them on the board. Yeah. So I'll write the ideas down, and then after that, we'll give you a few minutes to come up and sort of tally mark your top choice. And then the top the top 3 or 4 sessions will slot into those time slots and have those posted outside the room. So you can leave, come back, things like that. Okay.
So how do I turn this on? There, I'll take the one that's on. So if you have any, just put your hands up. I will come over, and we want to use the mic so that we're getting captured on the video. So.
Thank you. One topic that I'm interested in is getting to understand the starting point into the world of open source, right? I know a lot of people want to get into open source. They don't know where to start from, right? Because there's so many, it's a bit overwhelming to know which repository to look at, which concepts to look at, because there's just so much. So one thing that I'm interested is the starting point into the world of open source, in terms of mentorship, in terms of where do I start? Because I'm a software engineer, and I have some stuff from experience, but I just don't really know how to join the world of open source. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is maybe something around like resources or guides, some sort of start here.
Getting started, yeah.
Hi, I'm Pono. I work with Outreachy, and we recently got a grant to do an open mentorship handbook. So I'd love to know what people would like to see included in that, what resources we can also draw from. Yeah, just thinking about that.
And sorry, you said open source handbook or open source mentorship handbook? I want to capture that. Open mentorship handbook, awesome.
Hi, I'm Mache. I actually work at Metropolitan State University of Denver. That's across the street from here. I guess it's how do we get non-traditional students to start contributing to open source when they're balancing like work and school, and what are some ways we can get them to be a part of this community?
So, encouraging non-traditional students. Or not
Some of the approaches that work is, which we are doing with LFX mentorship, is making part-time and remote available, and saying that you have 40 hours a week or 60 hours, 40 hours a week or 20 hours a week. What happens is give them flexibility to work when they have time, as opposed to saying that you have to be on the premises, you have to work during certain hours. So that helps. I mentor about 150 kernel developers each year, and that's the approach I have taken. And the design, when we designed the LFX mentorship, Nate is we all used, I mentor kernel engineers, and then he oversees the CNCF program. That's what we are doing. Those are some of the things that help, giving flexibility and having a remote way, and connecting all of them. Once you take people in, connect them on Discord or whatever channel I'm using Discord, and then connect them so that they can help each other. That is that. And then I wanted to talk about resources for people.
I'm going to pause you just because I want us to hold some of the discussion for the sessions once we dig into those. But I think this is just going to show that we all have so much, so much that we have to share. So thank you for that. Yeah, and please just use it as an opportunity to think of who you might want to follow up in the room with, even if the topic isn't selected. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not sure I'm your target audience, but I'm a fly on the wall. I'm a designer in the LFX team, and I do intend to get to LFX mentorship at some point. And so I'm curious to find out what are the pain points of LFX mentorship. How can the tool be improved?
So there's definitely a couple people in the room you can connect with about that for sure. Okay.
So we have Shua's time and availability, diversity, and we've got questions about tools and LFX pain points specifically. And Tyler?
With that in mind, actually, that just sort of sparked an idea in my head of non-CS, like non-coding related mentorship. Could be things like design or UX, could be cybersecurity, all the other sort of tangential not directly writing lines of code for the sake of producing code.
I'm interested in opportunities for someone like myself who doesn't necessarily have a whole lot of existing connections into the open source community right now, but have quite a lot of experience in technology industry and things like that, to sort of transition into mentorship roles and things like that and be able to provide mentorship in these programs. And,
So like, oh, go ahead.
And tie into the programs and provide and just kind of get involved in that way as a way of getting involved in the open source community.
Ah, okay. So first I was going to suggest pathways to mentorship, but it sounds like what I'm hearing is actually mentorship as a pathway to open source?
Mentorship as a way for me to contribute to the open source community by helping grow developers, because I'm not a developer myself, but I've been a leader in technology for some time.
Okay.
And I've grown a lot of developers and helped them become more effective. And now I work independently, so I don't have a team to mentor anymore, and I really miss it. And so I would like to do that in some other way, and helping open source developers get better seems like a good way to do that.
Okay.
And so
I'm going to take a shot at writing that down. Please feel free to come cross it out and modify it.
I really don't know how to articulate
I
it
love that, though. I think it's a great
concisely
suggestion.
The summary I put in my notes was mentorship as a pathway to grow OSS community.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Did you have? Yep.
I would be interested to talk about the resources out there to actually fund some of the programs. So funding for mentorship programs or ways of supporting mentors and mentees. So it's not just us doing everything for free.
Funding is always it's always a topic. We appreciate it, though.
Hi, I come from an academic OSPO perspective. One of the things I'd like to learn is how to identify projects that would be good for first-time contributors. So that
Yeah, I'm just going to give her a second to finish writing that down.
Hi, yes, I'm just interested in understanding mentor, maintainer of an open source project, and coming to this specific conference, I've found this bigger entity of OSPO. So I'd like to be able to, people are looking to identify what projects are available. I want to know what OSPOs are available, what universities are sponsoring or have organizations that I can tap into.
So sort of like matchmaking between
Clearinghouse.
potential
Yeah.
collaborators, partners.
How are we doing for time, Lo? Sorry, I kind of ate my words there. How are we doing on time, Lola?
Oh, on time? Oh, sorry. It's kind of hard to hear from here. It's
2:35. And when do we have on? Do we have any other topics that folks want? And how much time do we have before voting starts?
I would just say if anyone else has a topic, we can add it to the list. And if not, then as soon as we exhaust topics, you can all come up and vote.
This may be the same as on the slide earlier, but mentoring the mentors. So I volunteered on the Kubernetes project, Code of Conduct Committee, and also on the CNCFs as it was being formed and stood up. I served there, so I have a fair amount of experience, but it's a repeated pattern that people need help understanding how to be a mentor.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Any final additions? Those were just kind of suggestions. So I would say if there's something on that slide that you want us to put on this list, let us know now, and we'll make sure that it gets ported over.
I think that AI tool one would be nice to maybe add to.
Was that your comment, Juanita? Okay.
Yeah, I think I'm interested in the AI discussion, mostly because I think it's like inevitable that we're going to have students using it. And I think that, in my opinion, the approach shouldn't be like, don't use AI, but like, this is how you should use AI, this is how you should not use AI. And even if we communicate it in that way, how do we enforce it?
All hard challenges, yes. Okay, great. Then I think what we'll do now is it'll take me like 2 minutes to just space these out a little bit so you can all vote. So please hang around. And then we have some markers here. We'll just kind of stick stuff to the wall. And then please come up and let's please go ahead and put like a little tally mark next to your top 2 choices. Top 2 choices, and then the top 3 to 4 sessions, we'll see kind of what bubbles up. We'll schedule those out and then jump into discussion. So in just a moment, we'll invite you up here. I'm gonna quickly transfer things over.
All right.
We have a schedule. So thank you everyone for contributing your ideas. We're in the process of putting this up so that you can see it marked when you might wanna come back if you're leaving. Oh, great, awesome, thanks Lola. Okay, so we're gonna start with the Start Here guide for new contributors, thank you. So that one had the most votes, so we're gonna start there. After that, finding collaborators and partners at 3:05, non-code contributions and how to support and invite those at 3:25. There's a conference break at 3:45, so please go get yourself some coffee. And then come back at 4:20 for the use or overuse of AI tools, and then a wrap up at 4:50 at the end of the day. So the way that we are hoping this will go is to just be a discussion. We are just here to facilitate. So we are basically, during these sessions, just gonna walk around with the mics to give you space to speak and share your experiences, ask questions. We're gonna do our best to document those. And there's also, can you go to the slide right here? We also have a Google Doc that's blank right now, but that we invite you also, if you're the sort of person that likes to take notes, to open up this Google Doc and help us document everything during this session. You can also return to this Google Doc after today, and we'll be porting these contents over to that repository we mentioned in a markdown file so that you can find them later. So with no further ado, I think we'll launch into the Start Here topic, the sort of how to get started in open source and mentorship. So does anyone have an initial question or comment they want to kick off?
We'll touch base and yeah, so awesome. We're also going to put this back by the door, so if you do leave, you can come by and take a look. So
this is, sort of the perennial question of, if you're a coder, the path to entry is obvious. If you're not a coder, the path to entry is not. So do you have suggested Start Here resources specifically geared towards mentees who are non-technical?
So I think we should wander around with both mics,
Okay.
because it's more of a discussion. It's not asking us, it's asking each other.
Well,
So,
I have my notes
yep.
up there.
I actually was hoping that Silas would answer that question, because I mostly hear from people who have been in the open source game longer, and I would love to hear from somebody who's newer, if that's okay with Silas. Awesome.
Thank you. So I would say, to start, it's a combination of the contributor guidelines and setting up good first issues that maybe are highlighting documentation issues that new contributors can get started with. And when I'm introducing my mentees to new projects, that's what I point them in the direction of first. Like, Start Here, contributor guidelines, contributing.md, like those kind of files are what I have them look at to get acquainted with the project.
Yeah, just to back up on Silas, is it? Yeah, Silas. What Silas just said, Clotributor has been very helpful for us as well. So Clotributor, so each of the CNCF sandbox incubating and graduated projects, if they tag an issue with help wanted, and if the issue is not associated with somebody, assigned to somebody, it will show up in that list dynamically for every open source project that's in the CNCF.
Silas, I had a question for you. So you mentioned, you have your students look at, or you find the issues that are good for first-time contributors. Is that because you know that, or are they tagged that way? I'm just kind of curious, like how do you identify those issues?
A lot of the times it'll either be tagged good first issue, or I'll just look for documentation tags. So, yeah. Also, I want to thank Laura for calling me out, because I probably would not have picked the mic up otherwise.
We're also glad. Oops. Now I have 2 mics again, and I want to give this to somebody else.
Something I tell students that are interested in contributing is like find the project that you like and just start reading through the documentation. And if you find like grammar, like very glaring grammar mistakes or typos and stuff, to fix it and put in like a pull request. And surprisingly, a lot of communities are very, very receptive to newcomers with that one.
Okay, hi, I'm Stephanie. I lead the Google Summer of Code program. And if y'all aren't familiar, we actually have something called the Google Summer of Code Contributor Guide. And I'm actually looking, because I read it every now and then, not from beginning to end, trust me. But it's actually, we have a section in here talking about like making first contact, and it's talking about like how to observe community interaction. So it's really giving you that basic stuff of like, hey, let me go figure out if this is a community I want to be part of. And so anyway, there's a bunch of stuff written in here by former mentors, students, et cetera. If you want to check it out, we also have a mentor guide that has a lot of information that it's helpful. So I just want to throw that out there for people, because there is really actually relevant stuff in here.
I've borrowed from it liberally. Andy?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that I'm just happened to be sitting next to, I'm sorry, I don't know how to say it. Mache. We actually intentionally put grammar and spelling mistakes into our documentation.
Thanks for that, Andy.
To attract people, sorry.
Yes, we do. That's cool.
So as a designer at LFX, which I've been working on for 1.5 years and haven't gotten to mentorship yet, but I'm always keeping my feelers out for pain points in open source and seeing what tools are out there that might fix it. I don't know if this is helpful, but I went to that link and I just posted like 10 different first-time aspiring contributor resources in the notes.
Oh, awesome.
So
thank you so much.
That's from research I've done. But I am like curious for people who have gone through this process personally of being an aspiring contributor to becoming one, maybe a mentee, and then now you're an active contributor. I'd be interested to learn from your story if you could have learned certain like metrics about various open source projects. I'd be interested to know what you would like to learn, because I mean the LF has a ton of data, ridiculous amounts of data, so much that we don't like. It's hard to know what to do with it until we know what people are looking for. And, I'd be curious to know like what attributes of projects communicate to you that this is the one that you want to contribute to.
So I can speak to a pain point, which is that there isn't a universal definition of what good first issue means. Because some, for instance, especially when we tell people who are new to open source and maybe even new to coding and so on to go look for good first issues, they are expecting issues that they can work on without already having a good base of knowledge about like the code base or about the project or whatever, but also projects very often think of good first issue as you are a user of our product, so you know this pretty well. You would like to contribute to this, but you just aren't sure like the norms of like this project versus a different one. And so this is a good first issue for an experienced contributor as opposed to somebody who's making their very first contribution. And so I actually have a really big beef with the good first issue thing, because there are two competing definitions, and that's not super helpful.
to speak as someone who is not very experienced in open source contributing. That's what you were just saying. That's the big issue that I have. Like, you go to a project, there's 200 issues open. Maybe some of them have been open for 5 years, and you don't know where to get started. Even if it's a, so to say, good first issue, that tends to not often be the case, in my experience.
Yeah, that's a really tough one, Laura. But what we've tried to do with our mentees is we ask them not only to do PRs themselves, but to leave a, you ever hear the give a penny, take a penny thing, right? So as they PR, they leave a help wanted behind, and that help wanted is now, or good first issue, is not eligible for another mentee to touch. So they are just one step ahead of what a good first issue would, you know what I mean? They just finished a good first issue themselves, so they leave one behind in their wake, and that should be low enough, you know what I mean, in terms of experience, to attract somebody to come in. So when you're talking about dev stats, I didn't catch, is it Jordan? Jordan, when you're talking about dev stats, that's something that would be really interesting to see if there's like a trend of how experienced, or is the contributor been around long enough that they have a good handle on what a good first issue is? Because you would know then if the good first issue was picked up in a shorter period of time. I don't know, maybe there's something there. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
Okay, so you have the history of the person's contributions, okay? So let's say in this case they've put in 3 contributions. They then designate something as a help wanted or a good first issue. And after some period of time, the issue gets picked up or it doesn't. So you could then maybe say, is there a cause and effect, or is there a correlation between how experienced the contributor is versus how fast does that new good first, you know what I mean? So like if we had a history of what...
You're saying, like, in an ideal scenario, we could know what the contribution history is of this prospective contributor, and then based off of what they have contributed, recommend other open issues related to what
Right.
they've done.
Are they a good marker or a good resource for understanding what the projects themselves need to attract others? That would be really interesting for me, from where I sit. Maybe it would help you. I don't know.
So to clarify your first point about leaving a penny, are you saying that you would want the person who did their first contribution to open a new issue?
Correct.
Okay, so it's not about leaving one for somebody else. It's about creating something new, creating a new issue.
That's effectively what I mean by leave a penny.
Sure.
Is that...
But you actually want them to create a new issue,
Correct.
Find some new bug, find some new documentation issue that also needs to be addressed.
Right, it could be as simple as a grammar issue, right?
Right,
Because they're
right.
struggling at that point in their journey to figure out what's significant.
Got it.
Because they may not understand the whole project, right? So their scope of understanding is, dare I say, small enough that they would be better at understanding what somebody might be able to achieve in a small period of time, right?
Right. So, and then on the metrics point, I don't know if this is something you're already doing, but a project that has a large number of, quote, good first issues that stay open for an extended period might be a project that's struggling to attract new contributors. And so that would be a potentially interesting sort of meta metric
As like a health metric
to look at.
Yeah.
A project that has a number of good first issues that remain open for an extended period of time, that might be an indicator that they're struggling to attract new contributors. Yeah, or they're too hard. It's a good indicator that something with their first issues is amiss. Either the issues aren't defined well and they're actually not good first issues, or they're struggling to attract new contributors. And therefore, and so those issues are being ignored.
They could even, recommend. You could even go so far as recommend in the comment could be some CI, right?
Mhm.
That says, hey, this has been open a little too long. Do you
Yeah,
think it's
for
still
sure.
really a good first issue?
For sure. Yeah.
Help-
I mean,
help
it
the
would be.
maintainer.
Yeah. It would be a good. It would be a good extension to like a stale issue bot or something like that, where if you've got too many stale first issues, it's like your community is not growing. You're not attracting new contributors, or yeah.
Or you're setting the bar too high on what's the first issue.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Your first issues are sick.
It's a health metric. And I have 2 mics again. This is a problem.
So I think someone asked something about like a path from like first contributor to like actually more involvement, and I think that for me, one of the main things that makes a difference within a project is actually the people, more than the issues, more than the code, more than whether it's an interesting topic. I think that the type of interactions that people experience while like approaching a project is one of the main things that it's going to determine whether they feel welcomed or whether they're actually learning. Because if you're a first-time contributor, you most likely don't have a lot of experience with, I don't know, GitHub or other types of things. And I think that for me, having like the right people that would like mentor me and get me to the finish line of like merging a PR, the whole like people experience was very important for me. And I also wanted to say that one of the ways that I've seen a lot of people start contributing to open source is by actually having this like in-person spaces. So for example, I'm one of the organizers of the SciPy conference, and every year we have sprints that last 2 days. And that is like part of the conference where the maintainers of projects who want to put some of their time will like sit down in a room and like welcome some of the contributors that want to just open PRs on their projects. And I think it's a great experience. It's like in person, so I feel like it makes a difference on like how do you connect with that the people. And I think it's also, it lowers the barrier of like, this is a project and it's sort of important, so this is a developer that I'm very intimidated to approach. But in a conference, that's sort of, it lowers that barrier. So that's also something that I've seen very good for first-time contributors.
Thank you so much. So we're coming up on 3:05. Did you have a comment about this? I can give you the last word on this topic. Then we're gonna
The
move on.
last word. So I just wanted to kind of follow up on something Juanita said was, you know, everyone here is really into development, into doing the work, but a lot of the students, if they're first timers, they don't have the training on the very essentials. You know, how to use Git as more than just a storage, you know, space. How to do the pulls, how to do version control, how to handle merged commits. So we need to provide those resources as well.
Okay. Oh, we have one. Okay, so one last final word.
Just one last thing. So something, I used to be a maintainer for a project that was an IDE for Python. And one of the things that I realized was that a lot of the new generations, they don't really want to read that much anymore. So one of the things that I actually came up with was like making videos, like even putting things on Instagram, TikTok, all those sorts of things. And I received very, very good feedback on people who were like, I didn't want to read the documentation. You made a video and you taught me how to use this tool and it was great. And I think those sort of materials will also be really good, especially for the new generations, because it's changing a lot how people learn these days.
Yeah, absolutely. TLDR, exactly. Okay, thanks everyone. That was great. So moving on to the next topic here, finding collaborators and partners. Is the person who suggested this topic still in the room? Because I think there were, yeah, it might have been. Okay, well, Andy, I'm going to let you start this one off.
Yeah, so quite simply, I think my journey has been introduced. We started our own program in Kubesteller called IFOS, Interns for Open Source. And I didn't know that OSPO was a thing until really just recently. So my naivete was just, let me start working with different partners in different spaces. We had some hooks into RPI, a university. We had hooks into Georgia Tech, and I'm from IBM Research, so full disclosure. So we had some partnerships going on there, so I started to tap into some of the professors, Valencia College down in Orlando, and then I started to learn about LFX's opportunities and projects, and that's where Nate found out that I have a real mental condition, asking for 7 projects with 7 contributors.
So many
Anyway, that's enough for another time. But so what it boiled down to is I realized this space was really blowing up, right? So talking with others in the room just the last couple of days, right? So Stephanie from UC and somebody else from St. Louis University. I spoke to Chelsea last night from University of Denver. So all of these universities, there's two sides of the coin here. One is there's universities that want to get involved, and there's an economy there, if you will, or a triangle. And I'll be talking about this tomorrow at 11:55 down here, bridging the gap between academia and open source. But the gist of it is there's academia, and then there are organizations, right? So LFX, GSOC, ESOC, European Summer of Code is out there now too. And there's basically 2 different models of interacting. So I'm trying to explore, well, at this conference, not so much the GSOC, ESOC, and LFX, but more the universities that are interested in building OSPOs, and how do we learn about their existence? And can we do one of 2 things? Can we recruit, right, or have people pre-qualified to take internships with Koopsteller and other open source projects that we have? And or can we help the OSPOs develop, introduce, expand their programs? Can we offer that? Because we have a wealth of knowledge about what makes people want to contribute and how to do that in a way that's, safe. You know what I mean? So that was the general gist. Yep.
No, I just wanted to respond because, I think that what you were talking about with regards to universities that are interested in it, and Daniel walked into the room of like perfect timing or something, so he'll be the next person to talk. I think there's a lot of interest definitely in, for 2 sides. One, it's like from my end, it's my researchers, like faculty, PhD students, and like postdocs and other researchers who are interested in bringing in, and that's like where, when I interact on GSOC, it's that, because it's not my students, it's students coming in to work with my researchers from elsewhere. But then it's my researcher, and then it's my students that I feel like so it's my students, I mean students from our institution that are the ones that I'm like, I think most interested in trying to find collaboration, and ways to support them, because I can team them up with a researcher from our institution, but I don't necessarily have funding for them for the summer, and neither does the researcher. So I think that's been the big issue for us with our own research, like our UC Santa Cruz students, for instance. But I definitely think there's interest out there, and for the OSPOs that are in academic institutions, I know there's at least, I don't know, Daniel, you can probably give me a number. But a number of us have like some level of a mentorship program or a mentorship effort. So there's a group called Curious that we brought up last. So that would be a good one to start, because I think we have some of our patterns that we have listed that would kind of identify groups, the different campuses that are working on that. So I think that's maybe a good place to also start.
Yeah, I think Georgia Tech, Syracuse, there's a handful of us that have more active engagement with students in various ways where we're fostering that mentorship and getting them hands-on to various projects.
Okay, so I didn't know about Syracuse. Georgia Tech definitely has some great resources.
The key, though, I think, is reaching out to Curious. And Curious is like this anchor point that will let you connect to all of us, and then we can help figure out who's got the bandwidth, who's got the right match. Because one of the things we say about Curious is every university does an OSPO slightly differently, and there's so many ways to do it that depend on the particulars of the university, what's possible at any point in time. It's very different from the way corporate OSPOs often get set up. And one of the keys there is then, your needs might be for 6 months over the summer. Your needs might be for, no, I need somebody during what would be the full calendar year.
right? And how do we find a program that gets people actually engaged and actually sustained in interaction with your project, and not just somebody who dips in, gets a set of stickers and a t-shirt and then dips out, right? That's not gonna help you, and it's really not gonna help them either, right? So.
Yeah, that's good. So curious is spelled?
It's C-U-R-I-O-S-S.
I-O-S-S, okay, very good.
I'll add a link to Curious in the notes also, but I've been also doing a brain dump of just things that I've heard of, like different models that have worked. So I'm not gonna like go down the entire list here, but just to say that there are a lot of people who are making it work, like finding ways to connect between projects and instructors or getting students into existing mentorship programs. So examples of that could be like a university instructor partnering with somebody to get their students working on specific projects. Like Kendall Nelson from the Open Infra Foundation does this, where she partners with instructors for like semester-long courses, well-defined project ideas that are supported by like maintainers and people within the community. That's one example. I also talked to someone the other day from FreeBSD who was talking about working with a university co-op program to get students contributing also in sort of that framework. So there's a lot of looser ideas too, but just wanted to throw some of those out there. And I also wanted to throw out there, there's a group of faculty who've been doing a lot of brainstorming and experimenting with teaching open source for a long time, like teaching workshops. That's how I got started in all of this. Professional development workshops. We just ran one a few weeks ago in Virginia, coming up with activities that you could put in a class. So if your context is university or you want to work with university people, they have a very low traffic mailing list. That's a good place to also sort of do ad hoc matchmaking. So it is still quite ad hoc, but just another idea. So again, I'm putting all that stuff in the notes so that you can find it later, but just some other ideas.
Okay. There's a couple of folks who came in a little bit later. Does anybody like to chime in? I want to make sure that we're inviting everybody to oh.
Thank you. Regarding the world of open source and the university and the university community, so I'm from Uganda, from Makerere University, and the biggest problem is students are not aware of the available programs. And so the one thing that we do to address that problem is by inviting them to attend community events, and then it's from those community events they come in and they see and they get to know more about these different programs, such as the Google Summer of Code, because I was actually part of this program. It's called the Google Developer Groups on Campus. And what we used to do is that we would just get students coming together. Oh yeah, we talk about the trends and all that. We talk about the bridge between academia and what's in the industry. And then at the end of every session, we'll let them know about the different opportunities that they can access from online, such as the different programs, the different open source programs. There's GSOC, there's this other one, because the two most popular ones that are on our side. There's another one which is, yes, Outreachy. Those are the two others. But the thing is, there are also a number of other programs, but the biggest problem actually is the awareness. People don't know about these things, but people are very much excited in getting part of them, but they just don't know about them. Yeah.
Was that Outreachy?
Yeah, Outreachy.
Does anybody have any ideas on how we might improve the socialization of some of these programs? We'll go, yeah, and then.
I think one thing I've noticed that's worked really well is getting people who have gone through the program at their companies to advocate within those. So I think it's just worth saying that like continuing to build those relationships with your alumni so that they can carry and get resources to bring to your program to help fund it. That's probably by far and away like one of the best things to do. So I'm open to strategies to help do that if anybody has ideas on ways to do that.
That sounds excellent. I love alumni networks. They're really, and I mean that genuinely, as a university, universities have tapped into that. The ones who have endowments have really figured out that alumni are key to long-term success. The other part of that is that's great for mentors. How do you find mentees and not just the mentors' kids and their nieces and nephews? The outreach needs to be, I think, wider, getting it into public libraries, getting it in front of K-12 teachers, whether they can do it or not. I have my kid's school, the librarian is the STEM activity coordinator and does not want to do anything code related because she doesn't feel comfortable, right? But if she knew that there were other organizations that she could just say, oh, you're into this, cool, let's get you keyed into something else, would be incredible. So that's my.
The GDGOC, that's actually a great example. Doing GSOC for all these years, I constantly get people saying, oh, we didn't know, nobody knows about Google Summer of Code at my school in X country or whatever. And it's like, I understand that. And then one of the things that people say, well, there's so many people from India. Well, there are 1.4 billion people, but it all started, like if you look the first couple of years, there weren't that many people from India, but one person did it at their school, then they told everybody else about it. And then the professors found out about it, and then they told their friends, and they told their students. And so it is that experience and that alumni that is key. So like the Google developer group on campus, that's something that we've always been really, I'm very good friends with the people that run it, and so we always try to use that network to help spread the word about GSOC, because you are at so many different universities around the world in so many different countries. So I think the same thing with Outreachy and everything else, all these other different programs, people just don't know about it. And until somebody like yourself, who's leading one of the GDGOCs or those type of community events, they're just never going to know about it. Because it's, there's no master email that everybody gets, right? Thankfully, I don't want it either. No, I agree.
So we have a follow-up over here, and then you, and then yeah.
We'll be coming back to you. But I'm so curious. You have so much experience with GSOC. Is that something that's fully happened organically, or have you created like flyers, or is there anything specific that you've created to help with that sort of distribution of information that we can learn from? Please share your wisdom.
Yeah, okay, I know about my wisdom. Yeah, 14 years of it. But yeah, I think it's mostly, we do have the flyers that we have online that we always tell people, hey, you can use these flyers at any kind of event. We have slide decks available. Give your own presentation about GSOC. That's why we have that available. And it is mostly organic because we do send, yeah. Yeah, it's very basic, but it's like years ago, we used to have people translate, when we were doing Google Coding, which was the high school contest, people would translate those flyers for us in multiple languages. And I think some people actually do that in their local languages when they go to give a presentation, which is great. The program itself is, of course, in English, but it's great that people will translate it so that it's more approachable. Like I gave a talk in Thailand, and a lot of people understood me. A lot of them I don't think did. I think they could read the slides and they understood that versus me talking. But then also I gave the slide deck to make sure that the organizers had that so they could then share it and could translate it to folks later or who couldn't attend. But yeah, most of it is organic. It really is that one person, the mentors, spreading the word about it. And yeah, because we do have a few emails that we would send out to different newsletters and things. We still do some of that every year, but that's not where we're getting the people. It's all of our network of 20,000 mentors and 21,000 people that have been part of the program that keep spreading that word. And people who haven't been a part of the program but still, care about it and care about the communities that the organizations that are involved in the program that keep spreading the word.
I think part of your curiosity and question was motivated in terms of getting wider distribution too. And I would say that there are seeds that are planted that are ready to start sprouting and spreading, rhizomes that will spread. The Open Source Africa conference that is happening in Nigeria, they're going for their 5th year next year, their 4th year is this year, if I remember right. That's a great place to start planting seeds that will spread. It's a Pan-African conference. Ruth Ikega is here at the conference today. The other pieces with that in terms of tying into university OSPOs that exist already, Carnegie Mellon has a campus in Africa and is trying to get activity going in their campus there. St. Louis University has a small campus in refugee camps in Malawi and Rwanda. We're trying to get things going there. So using those existing entities that already have a presence to start the germination process, and then once those germinate, they'll spread their seeds and 1,000 flowers will bloom, so to speak.
Yeah, I was going to say that it was funny. The first time I found out about that was actually signing up for this conference. And after all these years, I was wondering how have I not known about that? So where I'm going with this is I'm hearing the word like students, universities a lot, and I'm just going to turn a page a little, maybe some pain points here. But I know we reach out to a lot of students. That is a very important point. We really want to bring them in and have this valuable for, say, collaborators, bringing them into these open source projects. So this is more a question for some people, is that how are we also reaching out to people who are not in the universities anymore? How are we bringing out to them? Because I've talked to a lot of people here, as I am one of them. How are these siloed people no longer as a lot of my coworkers? I work in a company who is closed, so we are not involved in it. A lot of my people I graduated with are also in companies who are closed. I do not have, and our university was not involved in any of these programs, by the way. So this is actually a question, so these siloed people, how are they being reached out to?
So I'm going to take that, and maybe you could pass to Stephanie as well, because for the Linux Foundation LFX program, we don't have any rules around that a mentee or a candidate has to be a student. If somebody is older or is looking to change careers, and this may even go into our next topic, non-code contributions, we aren't necessarily always just looking for engineers either. So we very specifically said we've got, we're interested in a diverse group of people applying. Now, how do we get the word out? That's this whole talk. That's this whole discussion.
Exactly. Is like we find out so much as there's so many projects we're excited for, but yeah, finding out here is the amazing part.
Andy, or so you have maybe, actually.
Yeah, this is a quickie. So I just wanted to back up on Stephanie's comment about localization. This was a boon for us, so I just wanted to back it up. We took 4 weeks to localize our UI and just started getting Asia Pac contributors 3 days after we announced it. So I can't stress enough that a lot of us, that are sandbox projects, incubated, whatever, we don't pay attention much to the other language. We take it for granted that everybody's going to speak English. But I think going forward, I'm going to pay much more attention to outreach in the sense that it's localized content. It doesn't have to be a lot, but just something, a flyer, right? That's it.
So I work for a large company that does a lot of products and services that are based on open source. And one of the things that we have done is when you do work around an open source project, part of the policy, part of the process is, hey, go talk to Rich and his team. And I use that as an injection point for, I'm going to mentor these people in good open source practice. And so part of the answer is making friends with the people in your OSPO if you have one, and getting that injected into the policy and workflow.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, everyone. So that was the last comment on that topic. And I know you, but there's a lot of time left. So come on in. We're just about to change topics. Anybody who's new to the room, welcome to come in. We're trying to keep this close so that I'm not having to run quite as far. But our next topic here, this one's a little close to my heart, is finding and doing non-code contributions. Yeah, this is an open source summit. This is we're a lot of engineers in the room. I like to say, for my own program, if you're a developer, if you're a writer, if you're a designer, even if you're a project manager, we've probably got a project for you. So is the person who brought this up? Oh, this is you, Tyler. So I'm gonna let you.
So I came back over here to sit down.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think we have at Code Day, at least, we have like traditionally focused on more of the like CS focused open source contributions, but one, we found that there's a lot more student interest in not just pure, I'm going to write a web app or I'm going to write a mobile app or something, but I want to help in other ways. There's been a lot of student interest. We found specifically in cybersecurity and data science. So that's kind of one thing we were thinking about. I'm also personally kind of passionate about getting more students interested in like CS related research. And I actually didn't know that you have experience in that, Emily, so I'm interested to potentially hear about your experience. But there's been a lot of student interest. And then I know we tried one really small experiment where we had some students do like a sort of a code audit on Open Energy dashboard with the guidance of a mentor who does that sort of thing professionally. And she had a great time and the students had a great time, but that's kind of as far as we've gotten. So I was really interested to see if there's anything anyone else has done with other areas of CS other than those things and what you've learned.
I'm on the board of directors of a software foundation, and what's interesting to me is whenever this discussion of non-code contributions comes up, the categories that are listed are still code adjacent. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I'm having a challenge with is attracting new people into open source governance or law or finance, all of these things that at first blush don't appear to be related to software in any way, but we can't operate the Apache Software Foundation without those expertises. And so when I put my vote on there, I want to figure out how to mentor people specifically into leadership positions in open source, because those skills are not around writing software at all. They're more around people, and they're around understanding the laws, and they're understanding governance and all of that. So that's my interest in this.
Are we on to comments now, or are we still defining?
Or did Emily? Did you want to?
Well, I had a comment, but we can also. You were waiting for.
Yeah. No, I just wanted to make sure we passed definition. Okay, cool. So so we went explicitly for localization. So it was key value pairs that were already available. So out of the code, we just needed translators. In fact, my wife is native German. She speaks it, she writes it, she translates English. So she even wanted to pick it up. So I made an open source contributor out of my wife. She's never touched a line of code. So that's one. And we're doing a design project this time around. We got somebody from Linkerd, Buoyant, that's their background, and was introduced to us from Nate. Her name's Andrea Velasquez, and she's guiding someone doing a redesign or a design language for our user interface. So it's colors, placement, size, all that good stuff, right? We're also doing something on project promotion. So we've got a couple of repositories that we think have legs and should be part of either Sandbox or some other facet within the Linux Foundation. So it's taking and wrangling all the resources that we have, making sure that the repos have all their root files, contributing.md, license information, descriptions, project board, all that good stuff. So we check all the boxes that the Linux Foundation is looking for in order to qualify as a Sandbox project. So somebody taking that forward, it's a 2-month gap between meetings for the LFX for these types of things. So that's something that they can work on, and they don't have to have any code experience to do that.
Those are some great ideas. I have a couple other suggestions that for people who are looking to do this. I think one, again, I'm in an academic OSPO, so I think in the academic context, but I think if you can find an instructor who's in a non-computing context who might be interested in collaborating on one assignment or have you as a guest speaker or something like that, that can be an interesting entry point. And I would suggest too that I have taught at both a liberal arts college and a large research university, and I found that liberal arts colleges, it's just a lot easier to get into someone's classroom, get on their schedule, or a teaching college. I would also suggest, not that that can't happen at a research university, but it tends to be harder to play with curriculum. So just find your local community college, liberal arts college, something like that. And I also wonder if this is a place that we could be utilizing partnerships with librarians and libraries more. I think that super. So maybe Lola could give us all some advice on that. But I think that's just another example. I think of someone mentioned earlier about was it librarians? Somebody mentioned librarians wanting to support, right? But like not having the code background. I think this is like a really cool area that we could empower librarians to be like, oh, but you have all this other expertise, and guiding people to resources, connecting people with like their passions and ways to like really like, you know, get experience and share that with people. So yeah, I wonder if that's just an area we could all be doing more outreach. So I love that question. I think it's, or that thought, yeah.
3 cheers for librarian moms. My mom was also a librarian. And it's where I got my first email was when she was in library school. But there are in most cities a group named Volunteer Lawyers and Accountants for the Arts or something like that, that do volunteer work for the arts in particular. And I would imagine that if you tap into law firms, or accounting firms, they're looking for opportunities to get engaged in the wider community in some sense, to have an impact, because they need professional development credits. They need, like, at a professional level, they need to be engaged in some way. Also, they want to be engaged. They're people who are passionate about what they do because they care about not just making a buck, but the law itself, or the accounting itself. So, yeah.
Yeah, one thing I just wanted to add on, like Tyler said, I'm very passionate and excited to talk about libraries. But as we're talking so much about, you know, how to elevate the work of academic OSPOs, making sure that these OSPOs are working with their libraries, as we're talking with the context of non-textual or non-code contributions, if a research student has a problem, they're not going to go to their computer science department that might be running the OSPO. They're going to go to their library to try and find more resources and try and find more information. And if we make sure that the librarians are able to, oh, this is something that could be solved or made easier with open source, have the skills and connections they need to move that forward.
Yeah, I think also just making sure more people are aware of open source, I think, is part of this problem too. So when you brought up lawyers, I hadn't thought about that, but I was at an event like a couple months ago in Germany, and I like met someone who was a student who was in law school who was studying like the impact of the CRA, and I was like, oh, have you met the Eclipse Foundation that has an entire working group on the CRA? And she'd never heard of it. She didn't really know what open source was, except in a theoretical sense. And so like, I wonder how much of it is just that like no one that we want to do things like legal or governance or design or any of that sort of stuff. I wonder how much of it is just like very few of them come to these sort of conferences, and maybe we should be doing more outreach to like non-technical people to try to get them involved in the communities. I don't know what that looks like practically, but it sounds really exciting. I'd love to be part of some sort of group that's just, you know, doing outreach to schools or wherever that is to try to find more people who want to get involved in something like this from a non-technical perspective and just don't know it yet.
You know, this is interesting you bring this up, because the legal aspects of this, I never even thought about this either. But, you know, for me, I would struggle because it's not my subject matter expertise. I wouldn't know how to structure a project that could last the duration of, let's say, 3 months, or give somebody, or could I be a mentor to somebody to give them something more than, you know, they would know more than me in that space. So I don't even know if I have a maintainer or somebody on staff that has even an interest in that space, right, to begin with. So the way I might approach it, and it's actually happened to me at this conference already, I met up with somebody who was deep in the Linux kernel doing things with Shua. And I'm like, well, we have a system too. It's not exactly the same, but I know you want a mentor and you don't want a mentee. How do we bridge this gap? How do I get you up to speed on Kubernetes fast enough so that you can be a mentor? You know what I mean? Like, how do I do that? Because I'm happy with bringing a mentor in and doing that.
I don't feel like you have to be a technology expert to mentor someone towards open source contribution. I think that you're more a cultural liaison. And I mean, I do often find myself in situations where people want to go deep into the weeds in the technology, and I have to say I have no idea. But I'm still, you know, my decades of experience in open source, that I can mentor on. And so, you know, clearly defining what your expertise is and what it's not is the first conversation you have with your mentee. At least it is for me.
Yeah. So, but how do I make something meaningful for someone in a legal?
Yeah.
How do I do that? I'd love to host somebody, but how do I do it?
Yeah,
Sorry.
and
I'd love to host somebody in the capacity of a legal project, let's say,
Yeah.
but I don't know enough about the space to know what I'm actually looking for them to supply the project or contribute to the project with.
Yeah, and that's definitely challenging.
Yeah.
So one thing, just to yes and thank you for that, the culture aspect is something that keeps coming up that is in any of the sort of workforce development or the policy-driven conversations. If we don't remember that the culture is important, it gets lost and we lose everything. So thank you. But I just wanted to put in a quick plug in terms of UX as a non-code contribution, and plug Superbloom, which is an organization that is dedicated to supporting open source UX in general. So.
Hi, I actually have a law degree, and I'm coming at this from a legal department. I've worked in various tech companies in their legal departments and have helped design their open source policies. So moving into this space in terms of like an OSPO, that's something new to me, but what I bring to the table is help in understanding licenses, license conflicts, and explaining why it's important. Like, you know, we have groups of students who want to become the next, you know, Bill Gates or next, you know, Steve Jobs, right? And so explaining to them, hey, you need to pay attention to open source because your shiny new thing, if you have the wrong open source, if you have AGPL and, you know, Google wants to buy it, instead of your house being the best house on the block, now you've got to fix our upper. And they're going to tell you that you have to fix this. Yeah, you're going to have to fix this code before they buy it. And if it's really bad, they might just say, sorry, we can't. So I do think that there is space for teaching about licenses, and I do think that there's a lot of people who are interested in that, and they're interested in picking the right license for themselves, right? They may not think about patents, you know? They may not think about, oh, well, there are open source adjacent licenses. I call them open source like licenses, like academic licenses, or the non-commercial licenses. So we're trying to get them to think about what kind of model and what they want to do with their open source. Now, how to attract other attorneys? You know, I've never thought about it. I know, like at Columbia, Ebden, what's his name? Ebden, I can't remember his last name. There is a professor there who kind of runs a program on technology and computer science. He actually works with Richard Stallman and creating the GPL. So he might be someone who would be interested in doing something, you know, creating some sort of program for attorneys. But it's something I'm going to go back and think about a little bit more and talk to fellow attorneys in legal in technology legal departments.
Yeah, you see, that's what I was trying to drive at, is it would be cool to, if somebody, they wouldn't necessarily qualify as a mentor in the technical space, but they certainly would in the legal space. Something that you just said that like clicked here was, I'm having a really hard time sometimes selling our strategy, like their elevator pitch of why we should be considered. Because I'm having good luck with adoption of contributors. I'm not having such good luck in adoption of users. So I'm actually thinking now, you've got me all thinking that maybe a market strategist, you know, a mentor with a mentee for the fall, and then we come over and take over the world or something like that. You know, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe that's the spring. I don't know.
I just wanted to say, I mean, when you're talking about like a market strategist or something like that, I don't know which project you're specifically involved in, but like, Cube Stellar, yeah, I don't know what the adoption is, but like one of the things that we found with all the open source projects that our students have been contributing to, even technically, is just once they realize that the code that they ship is going to impact like 100,000 users or 1 million users or 10 million users, like that's really exciting. And like if you're someone who's studying business in a business school and you want to get into market strategy, it's like you can help like a local restaurant. Or you can help, this project that has 10 million users grow to 100 million users. I mean, that's a really cool pitch to them, and I think they just don't know it's an option. Same with legal and same with anything else. So.
Well, it will be now. That's what we're going to do.
So I want to pivot a little bit on the non-code contributions, and one of the challenges that often is faced in non-code contributions is attribution of the work and giving them credit. There are extra ways to do that, but it often gets lost. It's sort of ancillary to the code itself. And one of the cool things that the Mapping Open Source Science project did that was sponsored by NumFocus, the repo's out there if you want to contribute to it. They've made efforts towards advancing structured attestation of who did what, and identifying and being able to pull in non-code contributors into the attribution of contributions. So if you have technical acumen and want to contribute to that, I'll put a plug in for that too. It's called Mapping Open Source Science. It's sponsored by NumFocus.
It's Jonathan is
Jonathan
involved
Starr
with it,
is one of the principals on that.
Yeah. One thing I just want to add on, helping people get like credit and recognition is some of the projects that we've been working with have started like no matter what it is, if it's somebody's first time making a commit into a repository, just been adding it to the patch notes and just say, oh yeah, we got a first contribution from this person, and that is a great way that we found to keep inspiring people, because then it turns into contribution number 2 and then number 3, and then they have been contributing to this software for 6 months, and so.
To expand on what both of y'all have said, if you are a maintainer on a project, one of the big challenges in retaining non-code contributors is that they are often very obviously treated as a separate class of citizens and are almost never invited to be part of the in-circle, the maintainers, the fun people. I was the first person at the Apache Software Foundation that was given the title of committer, having never written a line of code. And I've now been around there for 25 years, and that moment of celebrating me and recognition is what kept me around for all these years. And I see so many people come in and they'll make even a consistent contributions, but they aren't added to the maintainer list. And so if you are on the maintainer list, you should advocate for those people aggressively.
One other thing I just wanted to quickly add to, sort of adding on to this general theme about attribution and like being able to do cool work. I would love to make a pitch for everyone here who has an open source project. Please explain what the impact of the project is. Because we have a lot of students even who think, wow, this is a cool project. And then they love the idea. And then we're like, by the way, did you know that like this is used by...
With this room set up, what I'd like to invite everyone to do is, and I know you all look so comfortable, if you could come into the middle group and try and leave as few chairs between you as you can, because I'm going to be wandering around with 2 microphones here. I am. I'm at about 15,000 steps today. Right? This is. I appreciate you making my life a little bit easier here. Thank you so much. And we're hitting on our big topic today. I've really appreciated all the discussion that we've had so far. We've had some really good conversations. And thanks again to everybody taking notes here. I want to invite everybody to check out our QR code here. This will invite you to the FLOSS Mentoring mailing list. Getting invited to the mailing list will give you an invite to our monthly meetings, and that's where all the work happens. So
it's not like an active mailing list. It's not like an active mailing list. It's just generally meeting invites and I think notes. So you won't get spammed by it. You should be excited about pretty much every email you get from us.
Yeah. So okay, and so. Yes. All right. So our topic now is the use of or overuse of AI in the mentorship space. And I'm going to give the mic here to Stephanie because you're the one who brought it up in the first place. So thank you so much.
And I really wish the other Stephanie was here. So I'm org admin for for GSOC this year for a while. And this year is, and we were talking, anybody that's in Google Summer of Code this year? Nobody else, just us two? Okay, and well, you. Yeah, it's org admin. Okay. So everybody that's on the mentor mailing list will have seen this like whole discussion about the use of AI by students and I can't say that I saw it this year, but I saw a huge increase in my numbers and in general, and I'm not a developer, I'm not a technical person, and we're an umbrella organization, so we have topics all from like all over the place. So it wasn't like I could recognize it, but I have seen issues, I think, with student quality once things got started that I think are in some way related to people using AI and then acting as if they know more than they do. And then maybe my mentor's not catching the use of AI for the proposals stage. Anyways, I just wanted to throw that out there. I think there's probably a lot of other aspects of this question, from not just from the proposal or discussion, the preliminary stages, but also through the entire mentorship program that I'm sure will be hitting me sometime over the summer. So it'd be great. That's one of the reasons I thought this was a useful topic.
Yeah. Normally I would ask for another person and hand off, but I do actually have a little bit of experience as the LFX mentorship administrator. One of the things that I do when it comes to candidate selection time, I coach our mentors to actually have interviews with, so like face-to-face, either Zoom or Google Meet or whatever, but actually having conversations with their short list of candidates to actually have a conversation, because otherwise, at this point, I kind of hate to say it, like if you're only interviewing somebody via text or email or Slack, then you run the risk of testing the knowledge of ChatGPT versus testing the knowledge of the candidate themselves. And so I found that the AI tooling isn't quite good enough to fool somebody if they're like doing like a fake video person, right? But if it's just a text conversation, then that's a little bit dicey. So actually having that conversation and being able to sort of talk with somebody and see that they're actually being human is one way to sort of mitigate that. Does anybody else have any?
Go ahead. Thanks.
So I don't have any experience with this in the mentee space, but in hiring in general, I have lots of experience with this. And I just want to sort of second that notion of having a face-to-face conversation and rely on your own sense for whether or not somebody's trying to buffalo you. You know, if it's big, I've gotten to have a pretty good detector for when somebody is trying to paper over something they don't know and not being frank about it. Yeah. And if you see a big disconnect between the work that they're producing in the test and what they're able to actually talk about, that's a huge, huge, huge red flag. And I've run into that in candidate selection for jobs a lot lately. So I think that's probably, if you're trying to do weeding out, like at that stage, that's probably the most effective thing that I've been able to find. Unfortunately, it scales really poorly, but that's just the reality of it, I think.
Yeah, so we're getting started more or less trying to scale up and scale out. We have 18 interns this summer that are working, and we've a host of co-mentors, about 7 different projects. And what we get for 7 projects, we get 450 applications. That's just through the LFX. So what we've done is we've developed code exercises for each one of the projects, and then people will contribute PR actively, and so we can get more eyes on them. So it's worked in a lot of cases. We had one slip through this semester that was misrepresenting. So, and I got to tell you, I encourage the use of AI because I want people to see the limitations of it. I think there are people that are experimenting with it, and they think they can do like a onesie-twosie thing and just get away with it. So I think I push it the exact opposite way. I say use it as much as you can because I want you to know what the limitations are. And so having said that, the way that we're structuring it going forward is people will work with us in an unpaid fashion, whether this is GSOC, LFX, so that we get to know them. That's the best. Then they increase their chances of being selected for the next semester. So we're going less on like blind applications and more on we know who this person is. That's our vetting now.
I think we've always, just to follow up on that and your point, I think we've always had that as being the model, is that we always say like you don't just accept somebody that you haven't actually had a number of interactions with for a GSOC or any of the programs we have. like because it's distributed. Like we have a lot of mentors, and they it's not like I have to talk to all 150 people. It's like each mentor has their or mentor team can split them up accordingly. But I agree with your idea about using AI as long as it's done in a way that's helpful, as opposed to, and what we came up with for a policy, or what I came up with, the royal we, is basically I decided, was, and I got it off of somebody else. Somebody else mentioned it on the GSOC mentor mailing list. Is I basically said, to all of the students who are on our Slack, because they all have to join our Slack in order to be considered. I said, if you can use AI, you can use machine learning, you can do whatever you need to create it to help you. But if you can't explain what you said, what you wrote down, and show that you understand it, you will be automatically disqualified. So that's it. So just keep that in mind. If you wrote it down, you better understand it, even if you used a tool to make sure it sounded correct and that you felt better about like how it came out. And that's kind of but that's the first year I had to actually think that through. Like last year there was some discussion about it, but this year is definitely a huge uptick on how it's been like impacting people's process. So.
And I think that's a solid policy. I've helped a couple organizations write AI use policies for their developers. And one of the things that is a core tenet of every single one I've written is you as the developer are responsible for this code, no matter what, right? And so setting that expectation early and clearly, I think is going to be really, really key to making sure that people have that sense of, oh, I do actually have to understand this and be able to stand behind it. I think that goes a long way to making sure that people use them appropriately. I'm dealing with unwinding some inappropriate use of AIs in a project I'm working on right now, where people clearly didn't know what it was doing, and it's a disaster, and so nobody wants to deal with that.
I love that. I was just going to add to that something that I heard from a kernel developer last night that I was talking to, which when I was picking their brain about AI and how do you feel about it, how do you use it, which was kind of thinking about the maintenance of your code in the future. So it's just really an add-on to what you just said, which I want to start sharing with students, is you're responsible for your code. I love that. Thank you. And also think about all of the people after you that are going to have to maintain your code. And so, yeah.
I have a question for the group. So we're just establishing our OSPO now, and I've been interviewing different people. And sometimes when documentation comes up, they're saying, oh, I'll just use AI for documentation. I've had, 2 people say that. And so I want to hear what people think about it. Like, what are the pitfalls for that, so that, I can explain that as well.
So do you have a comment that would comment, or can I come back to you?
Mine was related to what was discussed.
Okay, so let's ask. Before we let's put a pin in that for a moment. Yeah. Follow up with this, and then.
Oh yeah, I just wanted to share my experience regarding people just mindlessly using AI to contribute to projects. So in my university, we have like group projects. We do projects like with fellow students in class. And so I have like my own group. Everyone has their own group. And we do like specific, like we call it coursework. And the thing is, the other people in my group, you can explicitly see that they've used AI. Like it is so clear. And the thing is, what they don't know is that at the end of the project, once you have made your submission, you're going to make a presentation of it, like in real time, like with your face. So with the lecturer in front of you, that's what they don't know. So I keep on reminding them that you need to at least, okay, you can use the AI, but at least know what's going on, right? Because people just keep on copying and pasting code. You can clearly see even the comments section, they're like, oh, you can do this too. Oh, you can do this too. Like it's crazy, but yeah. It's just that boundary between how much you should use AI. You can use it, but at least understand what's going on.
Yeah.
Just want to follow up on that based on my own experiences. I feel like there's a difference between writing it and understand it. Like for example, if you having AI generate the code and then it seems like you understand each line of it. but that's not real understanding. Like if you write it again, you're not likely to write it that way. So I think, I feel like using AI is, there's a missed opportunities to help you identify your blind spot when you're writing code. And that's, I'm an engineer, energy engineer, I'm trying to learn more coding. So I feel like I'm also struggling about this problem. So yeah, that's my appearance.
So I'm coming from, I used to teach university math. And so it's been sort of funny in a way because like we got this problem in like 2015 when photo math came out. And so students have like, and so it's just like, what, this is still something we have to talk about? Photomath is an app on your phone that you can use to take a picture of your math problem and it will solve it for you and it will explain the steps. 16-year-old. Wait a second. So when I was giving take-home exams, it was like, I can't, I can say, no, use Photomath, and then the people who follow the rules won't, and the people who don't follow the rules will, and then I've created an unfair situation. And so it was just like, I don't care. You can use Photomath, you can use your roommate, you can use whatever, but we're gonna be chatting. And so I had it so that 50% of my students, a random 50% of the students would be required to come go over their exam with me. And I could be like, so tell me, why did you choose to do this thing here? And they would be able to explain it or not. And then in the second exam, and they could also sign up to do this voluntarily. And so in the first exam, it would be like only the 50% that we're required to do. And then in the second exam, it would be like 80 or 90% would be doing it because it could go both ways. If you couldn't explain it to me, then it would be like, okay, so I'm gonna take off points here because you can't explain it. But if you made a mistake and you can see it and then say, oh, I made a mistake there, it should actually be like this, then you get the points back. And so it was like a collaborative, like it didn't feel punitive because it wasn't. It was just a conversation and it was completely chill and it worked. I caught one person where they couldn't actually explain to me in real time. So it's just like you were saying that except that they knew that it was gonna be a thing. If you bring in, like everybody's been saying, like if you bring in the human, we're gonna have a conversation about this, but it doesn't have to be, we're going to have a conversation about this and I'm gonna catch you, blah, blah, blah. It's like, we're gonna have a conversation about this and it will also be beneficial to you that we're having this conversation. It makes this huge difference, it just changes the vibe. Totally.
Yeah, so to your point about really truly understanding the code, and I think this actually also bridges into the documentation question, is that my general stance on the AI stuff is that it makes people who are good at their work better and it makes people who are bad at their work worse, right? And in the case of someone who's trying to learn, it impairs their ability to really fully internalize complex concepts and synthesize complex thoughts. And that's true whether it's code or whether it's written language, right? One of the most valuable things of going through the exercise of actually writing it out and actually putting it together is the process of doing it. And having to go through that process to actually synthesize your thoughts. And by using an AI, you're skipping that step, right? And so your ability to really fully internalize the concepts, no matter how they're encoded, is limited. And so in code, that results in suboptimal code, and in documentation, that results in suboptimal documentation that doesn't fully explain the steps necessary in a way that can be really internalized well by somebody else, or that covers blind spots or covers gotchas for newcomers and things like that. And so I spend a lot of time working with middle school students and mentoring middle school students in a variety of topics. and this topic has come up a lot. And basically the position that I've come to with them is, if you want to use AI in this project, that's okay. But remember that the point of this project isn't the project. The point of this project is the learning that you will achieve while doing the project. And if you use AI while you're doing it, you're going to blunt the amount of learning that you get out of it.
So Quentin, I'm going to respectfully disagree with you. Okay. Sorry. I find that later in my career now, right? So I'm getting, you ever hear that probably that phrase that your parents once said to you? It's like, I forgot more than you'll ever know. Something along those lines. So I'm starting to forget a lot that I knew. So a lot of times this is like, helps me either remember a concept that I need for a fleeting moment or don't, right? So there's that. I find this is an incredible learning aid for students, okay? And I want to qualify that by saying the next thing is that eventually the runway runs out, right? So you get to a point, like you're going to get to a point where you've even reached the limits of your ability to ask the question, to prompt the thing, to know what it is that you need to do next. It's kind of inherent in it. It's weird.
And I think you're right. And I think you're right if the student is using it as a learning tool. Yeah. If they're using it as a tool to get a task done, then that's different because their intent is different. And the way that they're approaching their interaction with it is different. All right, so I want to give you one more thing.
Okay. So sorry, Laura. I got to get this out. It's just bothering me. No, so I'm going to go back about the days and the ages of the language interpreter and when it was first born for each of these silly languages we've come to know, right? Go, Python, right? All that stuff. There's a group of people, a consortium, that understood syntax and semantics and wanted to do things in a certain way, in a proper way, and it's been matured over time. I got to tell you, if I have to tell you how to properly put an array in JSON right this minute versus you get what I'm saying? How useful is that knowledge really to me? So what I'm arguing here, and not really arguing, just suggesting, is I think we get to a point, this is a prediction, that we're all writing in pseudocode. There's no more language, that everything is just instantly interpreted and then compiled. So I think we're going to get to that point eventually, and I don't think there's any meaning in remembering there's a semicolon needed there versus a comma kind of thing, and that's what I often find myself falling prey to. So somewhat like Laura says with explaining your math problem and knowing you made a mistake, or I had a plus sign instead of a minus sign, or I used the derivative instead of this. So that's where I was going with that. But I agree with where you're coming from, but I think there's inherent limitations here that kind of the community sniffs that out. And naturally, I don't even know if it's Lord of the Flies or something that I'm kind of referring to, but it kind of like, it moves away. But I could be a little too laissez-faire here.
Jacob? Speaking of using AI to learn versus to just complete a task, I feel like there's a big difference between copying and pasting a huge block that you might have very briefly skimmed through with all your code comments that, oh, you can also do this, and compared to if you actively type manually every single character, you have to think about it slowly as you type through. And that's a big difference that even if you're just using it to complete the project, you still have to think about it.
I want to just add on to both of those things of saying that while I think I agree with your prediction of the same way that people stopped writing machine code in favor of assembly and that people stopped writing assembly in favor of C, that we're going to see people are probably going to stop writing as much, JavaScript and Python in favor of a prompt. But there are still advantages towards being able to know, that kind of lower end, whether that's a performance gain or, more understanding of the code and what it's doing or anything like that. So I think that's a valuable insight.
Thanks for the help, everyone.
It's also a question of this applies mostly in the student context, but anything where it's time boxed, if we say to the students, if you use the AI to do this, then you're depriving yourself of this opportunity to learn because you're just doing it to complete this task. Then we also need to be honest about what we're testing them on. Because if we say, here's this assignment, and it's designed to measure how well you understand this thing, and that's all we say, then that's different from it's designed to see if you learned this thing this week, right? And so like if it's time boxed like that, then it's not honest to tell the students you can't use tools to help you get this thing done on time. Whereas if we have like longer time frames, it's like, you know, at some point there ends up having to be some sort of deadline, but if it can be like, this is what you need to know by the end of the semester, and so when you turn this assignment in, I'm going to grade it so that this is, like, if you get a 75% on this, then you have learned 75% of what this is trying to measure. And so then you can work on learning the other 25% by the end of the semester or by the end of GSOC or whatever it is. But if we are imposing time deadline, if we're time boxing, we do have to acknowledge, you know, like realities for the students and acknowledge when we are in fact measuring how fast you learned something, not exclusively did you learn something.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I thought you were before. I just kind of echoing that, but also to this idea of the complexities of how different learning styles work as well. And that's something as someone with my own neurodiversity and my kids with neurodiversity, particularly my ADHD one, who uses, it took him a lot to convince him that it was actually good to use it when he was having like writer's block or something. So I think that keeping that in mind when I'm looking at my students or students that I work with, I do want to leave that open for them to do something where it's like, I'm just staring at this. I know it, but I can't, there's a disconnect between what's in my brain and what's happening. That I want to allow for. And I think that that's something you also need to be kind of talking a little bit about. I think I'm echoing a little bit of what was saying, but thinking it also from the way different people's brains work, that these tools have actually been great for a lot of like autistic kids or kids with ADHD. So having one of each of those. So, what? And adults with them too. So yeah, so I just want to also point that out as something to consider. And he's got it.
So I was actually, Quentin was trying to get back to that. Do we want to, because I feel like there's a lot of conversation around this, and I'm not sure that we want to swap topics just yet. Do we? Okay, so let's do two more points, and then we'll come back to yours.
I just have a follow-up question on the two gentlemen, Andy and of course Nate, sorry, Cube. So, I think I totally agree that you need to internalize all these knowledge, and when you say that, when we in the era of like just writing pseudocode, can you explicitly list like what other knowledges you need to internalize in order to really just leveraging the pseudocode and can generate productive code?
I'll just have a quick comment. Okay, so it's actually just 3 words, okay? Interpreters, code interpretation, right? That interprets code to what else, right? Transformers in AI, automation, CI/CD. These are all forms of what people consider to be AI of sorts, right? It's just got a little bit more cobbling of words together, right, to make something happen. So we're already using it and have it in an accepted form in a lot of different places. I'm not suggesting that. I think in a way we're just evolving is what I'm trying to say. That's what I'm arguing. That's it.
Right. So I want to make 2 points, but they may be conflict with each other. One is I think we are forgetting that there's a generational shift happens. So maybe 200 years ago, working in a farm was very important. And when people started writing, the older people must have thought, what you're doing, why are you writing? There's no need. You should work in a farm because that's where we're going to get our food from. Likewise, mathematics, calculations was extremely important for the generations, maybe one generation before us, where they were extremely want to focus on doing multiplication by hand and that. Now we use calculators, right? On the code, I agree that we will write pseudocode, but we can go even further. Why do we even need to learn coding? There's no need to learn coding, right? For example, we can even live without it. Our parents live without it. The future generation can live without it, right? There will be abstraction. For example, there are a lot of people who knows programming, but do we know how the compilers are constructed? Do we know how the programming languages are actually being communicated with the computers? Lots of people don't know. They know how to write the code, but they don't know the actual details of what happens exactly, right? So it's a built-in abstraction, and that's why if you see lots of people were spending their career in just one programming language in just one area, maybe 20 years ago, 30 years ago. Nowadays, we have to change as a computer scientist. We have to change our area of working every 3 years, 4 years, because that's no more the change. The abstraction is so high that now we have to deal with another problem. So there will be a new set of problems which we will be focusing on and learning on, and there will be some things which will not even require to learn.
So we are running out of time. By running out of time, I mean we've just run out of time. But I did want, no, don't apologize. You had one chance to talk. But I did want to just see if we have a couple of extra minutes here just to circle back on the one that we put a pin in. If you have to go, then you have to go. But we've had, I can't believe we've already hit the end of our time here. But I feel like there was a lot that was around, but you were just saying, I just wanted to give you the last sort of question or comment here.
Yeah, I think it's really helpful to hear everyone talk about the use of AI. I do think a lot of it applies to documentation. I can see that having AI write the code gives blind spots, like you were saying. I can see how it might not explain things for a newcomer, like someone who's looking at it and might skip things. I can see how it might be helpful maybe to help do a first draft, but they probably want to go back and do something more.
That's the answer. That one right there. That's the answer.
That's some of the answer. That's some of the answer.
Do you want to expand on that?
So okay, well, because we
So the first draft question. I mean, so if I use AI to help me create documentation for lots and lots of things, and it's really good at creating boilerplate structure, and it's really good at helping me revise things that need to be shorter or more concise or things like that. But if I am creating documentation or something like that for something that is truly new, that doesn't actually exist in the model, it is no help whatsoever. And so there are pieces that you can use. You can use it to do a lot of the work for you, but the pieces where you need to actually create truly new content that needs to be technically accurate and very specific, that you have to do yourself. So you can use AI to be very supportive of that first draft, but there's still going to be gaps that you have to expect to fill in.
Thank you, Nate. Okay, I think we're gonna pause there. There's clearly so much more that could be said. I have been teaching computer science for a long time, pre-AI, post-AI, and I've been sitting on my hands over here, just dropping some notes on the document for you all to find later. I know Corey's been sitting over here quiet also, so please feel free to stick around and keep the conversation going. I love that there's so much good showdown happening over different perspectives. I think for me, the only thing that I'll add at a general level is I think it depends so much what is the goal. I'm still figuring this out. Silas is along for the ride with me, for better or worse, as one of my students who's now a mentor. Silas is in charge. Silas is in charge. So I think like I'm still figuring it out, but I think a lot, that's what I reflect on a lot in my own teaching practice and mentorship practice is like, what is the goal and how am I preparing my students for that? And how, right? So I think that resonates at least with a lot of us, no matter what side we stand on. In any case, in terms of wrapping up the day, first off, I just want to thank you all so much for choosing to spend your time with us. I know that we are slotted with so many other awesome talks today, and it means a lot that you came and you shared your questions, your challenges, your expertise. Like, that is not lost on us. I didn't know if anyone was going to show up for a 3-hour time block in the middle of a conference with so much cool stuff happening. And so just really means a lot. I appreciate that. Thank you, like, from all of us who organized this session. I also want to send you like really like a wholehearted invitation to remain engaged with our community. Like, we're a very chill group. Like, we love new people. Lola is, helping to advertise the key QR codes that Tyler set up for us. Emphasis on low volume mailing lists. Like Tyler said, like, you should be excited when you get an email from us because it's usually about something really rare and cool. Or it's inviting you to a call. We meet once a month on Zoom. Our talks, if you missed my spiel at the beginning, usually are like a 10 to 15 minute presentation from somebody who's like running a mentorship program, has a problem they're trying to solve, like literally anything related to mentorship. I will give you 10 to 15 minutes to come and like talk to the group about it. Like whether you want to share your immense knowledge or just find co-conspirators. So please, like, let me know if you're interested. We're actually looking for someone for our next call in July. We have someone for August already from Sugar Labs who's going to be talking about his work. They do so much cool mentorship stuff. So please reach out to me, Emily, if you want to present. Otherwise, please just join us and stay involved. Discord, mailing list. We also have that GitHub repository, which is just flossmentoring.org. And you can also please comment, put an issue up if there's something you want to work on or you want someone else to work on, or submit a pull request if you want to, actually help get the work done. So anything else to add from anyone else who like co-organized? Lola, Tyler, Nate?
Thanks, Emily and Nate, for doing some work, and Lola also for doing some work. But I think Nate and Emily did a lot of work preparing the conference.
We shared the load. We shared the load. So thank you, everybody. Cool.
I wanted to say, all the discussion was really great. My one regret is that we didn't have enough time to talk about everything, that like we had to cut everything short. So maybe next year we can ask for 6 hours. But absolutely, if you want to continue in these discussions, like come to the monthly calls, they're awesome. And join the Discord, and we're all there, like always happy to chat about open source mentoring. So
And we'll also be working on getting these notes, these Google Doc notes that a few of us have frantically been taking. We'll be porting those over to the repository, the GitHub repo as well. So if
you want to help with that initiative, you're also welcome to join the Discord and talk to us about it.
Yes, absolutely.
We have an OSS NA 25 channel that will be doing all of that in, so look for that.